Hey, all you adventurous travelers out there. Picture this: pristine blue waters, captivating sunsets, 7 nights of unparalleled luxury on a Virgin Voyage cruise.
That's right, Mike. We're raffling off a free 7 night Virgin Voyages cruise for two people. Imagine basking in the glory of the spa terrace cabin. That's the category we're giving. And the cherry on top, you get to select from all available ships, dates, and ports when you book it. Just make sure you're setting sail before June 30th, 2024, if you're our winner.
Now, here's how it works. Each week, right here on this podcast, No Tourists Allowed, we will be announcing a new raffle entry option. It's like a travel quest leading up to the big prize.
Now, for today's golden travel entry option.
To get yourself one step closer to those sun kissed days at sea, all you need to do is sign up for our exclusive newsletter.
That's right. And we've made it super easy for you. Head over to our website with the link in the description where you can enter the raffle. And even better, your information is saved. So each week, when you return for more chances to win, it's smooth sailing.
And folks, there's a treasure trove of additional raffle points. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're dropping exclusive bonus entries just there and only there. The links to the raffle entry, social media, and YouTube are in the episode's description.
Every week is a new adventure, leading you closer to that ultimate cruise giveaway.
So sign up, tune into the podcast and the social media every week for new raffle point options, and gear up for the possibility that the next mesmerizing sunset you enjoy might just be from the deck of a Virgin Voyage cruise.
All aboard the Dream Voyage. Now, without further ado, let's plunge into today's episode.
Good day, everyone. I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Farrar. Welcome to No Tourists Allowed.
Yes, we're glad to be back for another edition in season 2, and we have a very, very special guest today. You have special host every week, but we have a special guest this week. And James, won't you introduce John?
We have with us one of the senior executives in the travel industry, a gentleman named John Diorio. He is currently the vice president of North American sales for Virgin Voyages. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But John also has an almost 30-year career. John, I'm sorry to age you.
Okay.
30-year career. And what's interesting is your background is in resorts, in hotels, in adventure travel, in tickets. I mean, you really have a broad view of the travel industry, and that brings a lot of value for our listeners. And we're about to get that value out of you. So welcome to No Tourists Allowed, John.
No, James and Mike, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this opportunity and really look forward to just diving in with you both. I know, and James, thank you for not aging me too much. I think I now say over 30 years, but if you say almost 30, that sounds even better. I feel younger already by being on this podcast.
Yeah,
Could be my math is a little off. But listen, we traditionally start just to kind of warm things up,
Yeah.
have our listeners get to know you. We traditionally start with some personal questions, not too personal,
Okay.
personal questions about your travel likes and dislikes. And
Yeah.
I'll hand it over to the maestro for that, my
Oh,
co-host.
yeah.
the hot
So,
seat. Okay.
first question is, what size headphones do you have? Just kidding. That's an inside joke.
They're invisible size. They're the
Yeah,
invisible size ones today.
yeah.
Uh,
So we have some rapid fire questions for you, and just
All right.
if you'll just spout off the first thing that comes to your mind. This is a way of introducing your personality, your travel personality, to
Okay.
our listeners. So, question number 1: what is your favorite destination?
Puerto Vallarta.
All right, that's an interesting one we haven't heard before.
Okay.
And are you an aisle or window guy?
Oh, 100% aisle. I don't understand how people sit at a window. I really do not.
Yeah.
I
Well, and
agree.
you're a trim guy, John. I mean, for me, it's like I need the extra room spilling over into the aisle a little bit.
How about, are you a Kindle or paper book when you travel?
Uh, Neither, to be honest with you. So I don't have a Kindle, but I do use my phone. I have everything on my Google Books.
Hmm.
Okay, I
So,
didn't even
but
know.
it's definitely electronic. I do not bring paper books.
Okay,
He's a
good to
man
know.
of the 21st century.
I try to be. If it fits on my phone, great. It's one less thing I have to put in my backpack.
Yeah.
I bought recently, I love to read books, and I bought, of course, I selected a 900-page
Oh,
book that I lug around in my backpack now. It's like having a cinder block in my
how
backpack.
do you do that? I don't know. Like, it's just, yeah.
So, John, what's your favorite hotel brand?
Ooh, that so I my loyalty lies with Marriott from the broader global side of things. I find myself 90% of the time in a Marriott somewhere around the world.
And non-specific to a brand, what is your favorite hotel in the world?
Ooh. The first one that comes to mind would be the Four Seasons in Tokyo.
Good
Oh,
choice.
Yes.
interesting.
And I mean, look, there's so many great choices. I've traveled all over the world, but that one just resonates. Great location, great service, and one of the most magical countries in the world. So,
Good. And I'm heading there next month.
oh,
Um,
highly recommend that place.
good, good. I'll take note of that. And other than your current role at Virgin, what's been your favorite role? You don't have to give the company, but you're welcome to if you like. But what's been your favorite job other than, of course, your current job at Virgin?
Other than my current job, I would say I had the pleasure very early on working for a company, and I'll name the company because I think it tells the story a little bit. But I got involved very early on with travel online. And so back in the early 2000s, I ended up working for a company called Hotel Reservations Network, which eventually became hotels.com. And at that point, I was running a team to find individuals that owned websites. Like if you owned NewYorkHotels.com, my job was to find you somewhere around the world and get you to put our booking engine on it. And so it was really in the early times of when Google just started. They've been around now 25 years, if you can believe that. And so it was fun watching how the internet really grew, but specifically how travel grew online. I mean, to the point we were Google wasn't even charging for advertising back then. And it was great to watch the internet grow specifically for travel and be part of that kind of world. And so it was one of my favorite jobs because it was all creativity and all kinds of fun.
That's great. All three of us, I think, our careers probably started around the same time.
Yeah.
And so we all got to live this incredible transformation of the industry, the digital transformation of the industry. And there's been so much interesting and exciting and
Oh.
combative and, you know,
Well, I remember even before that, there was a company I worked for in Boulder, Colorado, and we had this global hotel program. It was truly a printed directory, and we got a random call one day from some company out of Washington called Expedia. We were like, they were like, we want to put this hotel directory on a CD ROM, and back before truly everything really kind of just grew. So it's been fun to watch the how travel has grown online and what it's done just for people's lives to see the world now more than ever.
Yes, absolutely.
absolutely. So, John, let's turn to your current work
Yeah,
because you're part of a really exciting brand presence in the world, and then specifically a relatively new cruise brand
yeah.
that has so much buzz about it and so much, interest. Tell us about Virgin Voyages.
So I've been with the brand now a little over 5 years, and what's funny is I got a call randomly out of the blue, and was told about this company, and we thought we'd love to talk to you about coming to work. And honestly, I really didn't pay much attention to the cruise space. It wasn't it wasn't what I always looked to do on vacation. So I wasn't involved in that a lot. But when you get a call and Virgin's tied to it and Richard Branson's tied to it, and I've been a big fan of his for years, it was worth understanding what was the opportunity for me. And so it was a chance to work for Richard and this amazing company, but also do something that a lot of people don't get to do very often, which is launch a cruise line. It's not something that happens every day, let alone every decade for that matter. So it was an amazing opportunity to help create this brand. And the goal was really how to create the best vacation at sea. And that's what we strive to do every day. And, it started with just how we wanted to create a very unique product in the cruise market space. And there are some great brands out there that have been around for decades, and there's great products, but we really wanted to create something very different to stand out in the space. And it's a formula, to be honest with you, that Richard Branson has followed for now over 50 years. And he seems to he's got it down.
So that's interesting. Tell us a little bit about the formula, or what makes the brand so different.
So, I think when you look at what Richard's done as he's launched different products over his lifetime, he thinks about coming into a marketplace of doing something a little differently. And I know you folks probably remember, obviously, Virgin America not long ago as they came in as a new airline in the US. And they really turned people's heads around. They're like, oh, what a different way to have a boarding experience. What a different way to have a flight experience. And the TV screens, and you didn't have carts going up and down the aisle and blocking your, journey to the bathroom as quickly as you needed to get there.
Right.
And that formula worked, but it started with understanding what people wanted. And so for Virgin Voyages specifically, we did about 2 years of research, and we really took a deep dive into what really resonated to customers that loved to cruise and what we could do a little differently. But more importantly, finding those that didn't think cruising was something that they would love and got their feedback as well. And it allowed us to kind of shape really the experience. And that's really what Virgin companies are about, specifically Virgin Voyages. We're creating a very unique experience compared to other products that are out there.
So can you give us some pillars of that experience?
Oh, James, I can talk about this all day long. Of course I can. You teed me up so well. So I think first and foremost, as we looked at creating that experience, the first thing that really resonated was there was a huge opportunity in the cruise space to have a voyage without children. And so we are an exclusively adult-only experience. You have to be at least 18 years or older to sail with Virgin Voyages. And so, as I was starting with the company and as our ships got closer to launching, I don't think my kids really understood that. And when I started telling them they couldn't go on my ships, they were not really happy about that. But it's one of the true differentiators for us in the marketplace of having no kids on the ship. It is built for us as adults. Everything we did from the design of the ship and the smell and the soundtrack and the experience and our crew helps create that very unique experience. And it's amplified, believe it or not, when you step on board. You feel that energy, but there's something missing and it's kids. And that just elevates that experience for adults. Like that's truly, I think, one of the key things.
Right. And it's not because, Sir Richard doesn't like kids or,
No.
There's plenty of product out there, plenty of cruise
Great
experiences
product.
out there for children.
Yeah.
So it's just something that really sets you apart.
Yeah. And that was foundational for us. And then it became what that experience was going to be for our sailors once they came on board. So we started with making sure there was as much as possible included in their experience, that as they were on this amazing vacation and then they decided it was time to vacation was over, they didn't get this kind of sticker shock at the end, right? So we include a lot more in the experience. So all of your food is included. We include all the gratuities, all the group workout classes. We include as much as you could possibly think of where it makes sense for us. And so it just creates a very unique experience and it resonates really well with our sailors. I mean, we're winning all of the best cruise line awards right now this year in our second year of sailing. So we have the right experience and it's working for us.
This nickel and diming concept,
Yeah.
for travelers in any vertical, and whether it's cruise or vacations or whatever, it sort of sticks under our craw as travelers. So you really, you're hitting on something that resonates
Yeah.
with travelers. This more inclusive kind of approach, you know.
Yeah, and I would say we're not an all-inclusive product. I think
Right.
there's a difference between that type of product. We and you said it perfectly, James. We're a more inclusive type of product. We include what our sailors want to have included in an experience where they can control what they want to do when they come on board. So, for example, Wi-Fi. Like to us, Wi-Fi is a basic human right. Everybody gets Wi-Fi. But we took it a step further and said, not only do you get one device, but you're going to get two devices when you come on board, and that's per sailor. So you don't have to worry about those little things of, oh, my phone is on the Wi-Fi on the ship. Oh, I now got to do some work, and I got to turn it off on the phone, and then turn it on your laptop. We just give you two devices, and it just
Or
makes
do it to each other, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
You know,
that
you're
too.
traveling with somebody and you're knocking them off the Wi-Fi all the time.
Right.
Well, and it creates just a nice experience, less friction, and I think when you get rid of those little nickel and diming things that you talk about and include more, you're on board to enjoy the experience now, and you don't worry about those little nuances, especially when you get off the ship.
So let's talk a little bit about your hardware. What what in the what differences did it make when you were designing the hardware and you're thinking about, okay, we don't have to worry about kids. Of course, we don't
Yeah.
have to have a kids club, things of that nature. Was there anything that kind of stood out that gave you something in the design phase that allowed it to be different than a ship that would have children?
Yeah, so I think it started, Mike, with us really looking at what size of ship we wanted to build, right? I mean, there are some great products out there. We consider ourselves more of a mid-size ship based on its size, right? There are some very larger ships coming out, and there are ships that are smaller than us. But we knew there was the right size of ship that would allow us to have very different experiences on board the ship, but also simultaneously, that size of ship allows us to go to a lot of different ports that larger ships can't go to. So that creates that different experience of where you're going as well from an itinerary standpoint. But when you think about the onboard side of things, first and foremost, every space on our ship was designed to be very intimate. You won't see large dining restaurants of 1,500. You don't see theaters of 1,000 people. Everything was designed to be very intimate. And what happens is you kind of move from space to space. There's a unique soundtrack, there's a unique vibe, and it allowed us to build that with adults in mind. We didn't have to think about where to put the roller coaster or the rock climbing wall or the kids' room and things like that. And those are great for other products, but for us, it was everything we designed had the lens of what do adults want to do. And it gave us a lot more freedom where we could have a karaoke lounge where our sailors can come and do karaoke whenever they want. It allowed us to think about the type of entertainment being more with adults in mind, even to just the retail experience. And we even have a tattoo studio on board our ships. Those are things you can't normally do or you wouldn't see normally happen on other ships. And then I think one of the hallmark items when it came to design is that in our cabins, we've got hammocks on all of our terraces or balconies. And that's something that is very signature to Virgin Voyages.
That is great. That's something I would enjoy.
Oh, Mike, the biggest challenge with our hammocks on our sea terraces, especially if there's 2 people, is they fight over who gets to be in the hammock. That's the biggest challenge we have.
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to dining, was there anything special that you thought about while you were creating the dining experience for adults?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, we have no buffets. There are no buffets on our ship, and there's nothing wrong with a good buffet, but we knew based on our research that for this elevated adult experience, you wanted to have ready-to-made order food, you want it to be custom, you want it to be fresh, and, we got rid of the buffet. So everything is there made fresh. We also include all the food in your experience, so you don't have to pay extra to go to a, kind of a specialty restaurant. And so that allowed us to really hone in on that type of quality of food that's, it's unrivaled in the industry right now, especially as we keep winning awards for some of the best food on the ocean.
Great.
So you've touched on a couple of things here that actually bring us into the ethos of our podcast, No Tourists Allowed, right? We're trying to help people travel in a better way, travel in a more memorable way, hopefully more authentic and less like tourists. So is there anything about the Virgin Voyages experience that can help us do that? I mean, you've already touched on, for example, the size of the ships allows you to go to some less touristy ports, and I don't know, maybe it's the food on board, or maybe it's you have cultural programs or shore excursions. Help us understand, does this fit into this no tourists allowed worldview?
Yeah. So I think, James, when we think about Richard and his beliefs as he's built his companies over the years, we really have a lens on just being environmentally aware, right? And when you build ships like this. And so we started from day one making sure we were doing what the best we can for the oceans and the ports that we go into, and even the experience on board the ship. And what I mean by that is we have no single use plastics on the ship. We have no bottles of water that you have to buy. So it starts with those little things, even the bands that you wear when you're on board. So whether you can see it or not, I'll show you
Mhm.
guys. But that band that we wear is made from recycled fishing nets that are extracted from the ocean that are left there. We have a company we work with that extracts that from the ocean that's just sitting there as waste. They take that and they create our bands that are used to get you into your cabin. We use
Mm.
that to pay for things on board the ship. And so we really think about all those little things that, contribute and really help with our kind of environmental footstep, our footprint. Even the sunscreen we have on the ship, it's a reef-safe sunscreen, making sure that we're not impacting the coral reefs around the world. So it's all those little things. You talked about the buffets. Buffets there's probably a couple hundred tons of waste annually on ships when you have to throw food away after a certain period of time, which is unfortunate, right? And that just goes to the little things that we look at and make sure that we're doing better to just be more responsible.
That's great. I think our travelers need to hear more about that, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk out there about um, how cruising might not be environmentally friendly. And I think most people don't understand the lengths to which cruise cruise lines go
Yeah.
to work on all of these programs and to give back to the communities and to protect the oceans and to deal with waste and to deal with single-use plastics that doesn't get talked about
It
enough.
doesn't. It doesn't. And we actually also, through a lot of research, we know it's actually a very influential factor in the buying decision as well. Like if you have there are people that want to buy products that align to their beliefs, right? So if we are thinking about what we're doing to make the oceans, better, um, and we kind of say that more. And I agree with you. I think brands need to do that more. But we're seeing that because we talk about it more, we get people coming over to us because we are very aware of that. And I think the industry as a whole has done an amazing job over the past decade in the way they design ships and how they process things that you mentioned. So as an industry, we're doing amazing work.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about what's your favorite Virgin shore excursion or two, just to give us an idea of what the experience is like.
So, and I just recently did this one. And so as we thought about shore excursions, at Virgin, we have different names for everything. We call them shore things. And the one that that sticks in my mind, because I just did this back in May. So in May, we launched our third ship, Resilient Lady, out of Athens, Greece. And when we think about what we do in a port, we obviously want to work with local vendors and local experiences to make it very authentic. And
Mhm.
so there is, her name is, it's slipping my mind, but when we go to Mykonos, for example, we do this cooking experience at this lady's house. And it's about 10-15 minutes away from the port. And she welcomes us into her home, and we just make Greek food all day, and she shows us how to make it. She gets us involved in making it, and it's about 20 people, probably no more than 30. So we try to create more of that intimate experience versus it being in a shore
Oh,
excursion that's with 100 people. And
right.
so it allows it to be more memorable is how we look at it. And so that's
Yep.
the one thing that I absolutely love. It's one that I highly recommend when you sail with us out of Greece.
What a great
That's a
experience.
perfect example.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I'd love to do.
We've got so many of them. We do these great experiences in Puerto Plata in the Dominican Republic where it's an 8-hour experience, and you're zip lining, and you're on ATVs, and you're hiking, and it's about just immersing yourself locally in that culture at the moment. And it's those little things that make a difference. In our team, we've got an amazing team that really goes around the world looking for those authentic experiences, and making sure that they also kind of believe in the same things we believe in terms of the environment and waste and plastics and things like that.
Mike, let's get some tips from John because he is such a frequent traveler, clearly has a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of experience.
I got a couple before we do, I got a couple of questions I just got to get
Oh, okay.
across before we let him off.
Okay.
One is, are there any plans for Necker Island to be a stop?
Well, that's a great question, Mike. The answer is no. So there's really no place to put the ship, to be honest with you. And I think
Yeah.
Richard, as much I think Richard loves to have us, would love to have us there. I think he'd rather come to the ship, to be honest with you. But no,
Yeah.
no plans to do Necker.
Nice
Uh,
try, though.
Nice try, Mike.
Yeah.
Nice. Look, you could easily purchase an experience on Necker Island. I know Richard would be more than happy to welcome you there, for sure.
Yeah, and my follow-up question to that is, when you speak to Mr. Branson, does he require you to call him Sir Richard?
He does not. He does not.
There's a
But
lot
out
of
of
these.
respect, we
Out of
should.
respect, you use it and you reference him, but no, you do not.
Okay. Well, great.
All right.
Well, as James was alluding to, do you have any tips just as we know you're on the
Mhm.
road a lot, you're out talking to people, telling, being an evangelist for your brand. Do you
Yeah.
have any tips for when you travel of things that you do that might make your travel more convenient or less of a hassle?
So, there's a couple of things that I always think about. I'm a big fan of just being as efficient as possible when I travel. Now, I get the benefit of doing it almost every week, so it comes with it's a habit now. Um, I love obviously TSA pre-check is a no-brainer. But I'm also a member of Clear. Clear kind of helps you expedite that. And I think I was living in Denver and they launched it in Denver and Orlando. I won't even say how many years ago. But it's probably it's just a great experience, and Clear has done a great job of even kind of moving that experience into stadiums now and things like
Yeah.
that. So
That's
there's a lot of great benefits that come from that. So that's the first thing. The other thing I think about a lot, and you really only have to do it once, is I have on my phone, I have pictures of my passports, my credit cards, my driver's license. In the event that I lose that stuff, I have it on my phone. And if you lose your phone, obviously a lot of your stuff is in the cloud these days anyways. You can actually access that. And so it's very helpful traveling internationally, but I think just in general, once you have it, I know it's there. I've got my vaccine cards there, and it's just sitting in a Google folder that if I ever have to get to anything of that importance, it's sitting there for me. And I think that's just a simple tip.
Great. But it's a great tip. It's a great tip. And I do the same thing as well.
Yeah.
Good advice for our listeners and our
Yeah.
travelers.
I travel with reusable water bottles. These days, you try to avoid getting plastic as much as you can. I love seeing what airports are doing now. I mean, some airports, I think San Francisco and I think now Los Angeles are banning plastic bottles in the future.
Mhm.
So when you get a bottle of water in San Francisco airport now, they're only the aluminum ones if you're buying it at the airport. You're seeing a lot of the filtered refilling stations as well. So I don't go anywhere without my refillable water bottle. I mean, I don't want to pay $5 for a bottle of water. Why should you? So
That's right. Well, good. Well,
All right,
thank
John, it's been great having you. Really terrific to learn more about Virgin for everyone,
thank
but
you.
also just to spend a little time with you. So thank you. I know our listeners thank you. And
Yes.
we'll see you on the next Virgin cruise. Well, actually, speaking of Virgin
Yes.
cruises,
Yes.
um, you and your company have been so generous to provide us with a 7-day cruise, which we are giving away to a
Cool.
lucky listener and his or her companion. So it's a cruise for two for next year.
Yep.
And we'll be drawing for that from amongst our listeners towards the end of our season. So they've got 6 or 8 weeks to get registered for that, to encourage their friends and family to listen to our podcast, and then to experience firsthand a
Yes.
Virgin Voyages like you've just been telling us about.
I'm
So
signing
thank
up today.
you for that.
I am signing up today.
Yeah, please do. Please do. James, Mike, thank you for having me. This was a great pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
sir.
much. Today, James and I want to call out a little bit of time to talk to you about really focusing on our ethos, what we call our manifesto of no tourist allowed.
That's right, Mike. We've covered so much in our first season and now in this new season. Each episode, we've dropped some advice about how to travel in a more authentic way, in a more memorable way, in a more real way, right? And even in a way that's better for the planet in some sense, so a more mindful way. But we thought maybe we should bring it all together for everyone and start establishing our manifesto. And so we'll do a couple of the points today, and each episode will add to it. And maybe our thoughtful listening audience here will send in some suggestions for us too, things that we have not thought about ourselves, but we have given this a lot of thought and a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And one concept that we'd like to cover is this idea of when you begin traveling and you don't really know any better, or maybe it's traveling is new to you, you're kind of born a tourist. So you're a child, if you will, in your travel life cycle. And tourists do these typical things. They go to tourist destinations, they eat in tourist restaurants often and do the tourist things. And as you mature and as your travel, becomes more frequent, or you have more history in your travel, you become more of a traveler, and you become more authentic, and you experience more authentic things, whether it be dining, whether it be interacting with other cultures, and just being part of a real travel experience.
So understanding this arc of going from tourist to traveler and maybe beyond that, even to something even more expert. Maybe you go and live in another country at the end of that
Right,
arc.
right, yeah.
That would be kind of cool. So one of the first points along with that is to find in yourself a genuine interest in another culture, right? Is to be open to learn, is to be uh, not worried about difference, but to actually seek out difference, right? As a traveler, seek out those differences with your own culture and your own experience and your own customs. And it comes in so many different ways. I mean, I love art and architecture. Someone else loves clothing and shopping, or someone else is thinking about customs or food, right? That's always a big one. Or education, maybe. There's so many layers to being open to another culture and another way of living and another experience. And some of it's even like where you stay. We talk about this a lot, Mike. Of course, there's been terrible tragedy recently in Morocco, but the last time I was in Morocco, actually in Marrakesh, I stayed in a riad, right? The traditional courtyard house with actually a living area on the roof. And that just made all the difference. I've also been to Marrakesh and stayed at a Four Seasons. And that it was a beautiful experience, but a very different experience of Marrakesh than when I stayed in that riad. Or maybe for someone it's staying in a pensione in Italy or Spain, or a hostel somewhere. Some way to stay in a place where you're actually closer to the people and closer to the culture.
Yeah, just like our guest John was mentioning earlier, there was a short excursion in Mykonos that he took where he actually went into someone's home and prepared food with them, and I'm sure he was able to eat some of the food. But just what a remarkable experience to be able to go in and experience to live to a degree just like a local person lives. And I think that's all encompassing of what it is we're trying to promote. And
Yeah,
it, it's it's getting out of your safety zone. And by no means are we saying be unsafe. I'm not saying that. But do something a little bit different. Look out and try to experience something that you haven't done before. And that might require a little bit of research, a little bit of planning, but there are lots of local organizations in the destinations that you go to where you might have a chance, for example, to go volunteer a day to do some work with a children's program, or help some people in some way. And by doing so, you really get involved, and not only does that build a great experience for you and a rewarding experience, but you're also helping other people. But you're interacting with the culture. You're getting involved, and you're talking to people who don't have to treat you like a king, like a lot of the big resorts. The employees have to treat you like you're royalty almost, but they can really speak to you one on one. You get a real understanding of what it's like to live there, to be in their culture, maybe to break bread with them, but to really understand what it's like to be different.
and you can make these experiences happen by following a couple of ideas, guidelines in our manifesto. And you just mentioned food in a couple of different ways. And I think that's another big one, right? For all of us. And eating locally should be a value that you pursue when you travel. Look for those busy places that are filled with local people. That's always a good sign,
Yeah.
right? That's a place that you want to eat. And if you're looking at a menu, um, and you don't know what something is, to me, that's a signal that I should try it.
Yeah.
Right? My father always had a rule when I was a kid, and it was, uh, you had to try it. if you didn't like it, you could order something else.
Right.
But you had to try it. That was the rule. So I kind of feel the same way when I'm traveling.
My mother was exactly same rule in my family as well. But that reminds me of a trip I took to Cuba back 12, 13 years ago. And, Cuba's a unique experience for a lot of different reasons. But this particular trip, they had us going to the nicest places, the nicest hotels. And things are different in Cuba. They don't have access to a lot of international foods and so forth. But we went to these really nice, seemingly expensive places built for tourists, and the food quality, to be really candid, was not good. Um, we had one experience where we went to this. It was a chicken place on the side of the road. I'll never forget. It was this huge open air chicken place. Everybody around us was Cubans. We were the only non-Cubans there, and it was the best meal that we had. And it was probably 1/10 the cost of the other food. And that always kind of resonates with me as an example of, eating local can be certainly better quality food. And again, you're interacting and getting to sit with people that and have a conversation in a lot of circumstances that you might not have been able to otherwise.
Yeah, and I agree. You're more likely to get fresh food that way, and it's often affordable and really memorable, and it opens the doors. It's one of the ways that opens the doors to interacting with local people too. So what's kind of unspoken here is no McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
No big American names. Not that I'm not putting anything down, and there's a time and a place for everything. But when you're in Paris, don't go to the big American names or the McDonald's. Seek out these opportunities. Um,
But I would say the only exception to that, James, is when you go to Estonia, because I did go into a McDonald's in Estonia, and all of the people worked there were supermodels. It was unbelievable. They were all these beautiful women, and they were 5'10", beautiful, and it was like you were at a Victoria's Secret fashion show, and they were working at McDonald's. So with it was
well, that's a whole other value.
Estonia is the exception. But we hope these things bring some clarity as to what our ethos is, and really what it is that motivates us to provide this podcast, for you guys. We want to be able to share some of the great relationships that we have with a lot of the hosts that we have on. We want to be able to educate you to a degree in the different types of travel there is, but we really want you to think about traveling in a way that's sustainable, that's authentic, that means a lot, and it will last. These memories will last with you forever. So that's my hope.
Absolutely. Now that we've covered just a few of them, so come back with us each week. We're going to give you a few more guidelines in our manifesto. By the end of the season, you'll have the full picture. And also, Mike, we should, at the bottom of the podcast now, we should remind everyone what we said at the top of the podcast, which is we're giving away a free Virgin Voyages cruise for two, right? And all our listeners have to do is sign up for the newsletter. You can find the links in the pod description or go to notouristallowed.com. This week, you sign up for the newsletter, and that gets you multiple entries in the drawing. Next week, we're going to ask you to do something else, and that will allow you to get even more entries, and so on each week.
Absolutely. And I want to take just a second too, James, just to thank some of the people behind the scenes that helped make this podcast be so successful. And Nathaniel is our producer. He does a fantastic job. If you need any help producing a podcast, I think in the show notes you'll have his company that he does a tremendous job orchestrating all of this. And I'd also like to say thank you to Rachika, who helps us with our social media and marketing of the podcast as well. And there's tons of other people. Jessica Deverson, who's always on with us each week, and lots of other folks behind the scenes. But thank you all. You've kind of helped James and I dream of producing this podcast and getting our message out to a lot of people turn into a reality. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.